In a year when the economy has been ravaged by the pandemic, the government needs money to support different segments of the industry as well as society. And nearly everyone, whether it is the left, right or center, seems to agree on one point. Government should not raise taxes. Nobody can afford to pay more taxes or duties. Instead, it should sell assets.
How will the government raise finances and where will it spend that money? That's the basic arithmetic of any budget.
The main source of government's income is the taxes that it collects from us. Income tax, GST, customs duty, etc., etc., etc. However,
the avenues over here are pretty small because the economy isn't growing enough and therefore you can't tax it enough. So if you don't have tax revenues that are going to be buoyant, then you're required to find alternate avenues of raising resources. And I think that's what is important in a period when you have this kind of economic stress.
So if the government can't raise taxes without hurting people, where is it going to find the money to spend more on social schemes like Manrega, health, education, or even to support the informal economy? It could sell stuff like telecom spectrum. That's one option to raise the money. The second option is to sell shares that it owns in other companies. For example, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman told us in the last budget that the government is going to sell shares in LIC, the country's biggest insurance firm, via an IPO. And of course, the third option is to sell entire government companies which are not doing too well. For example, Air India or government banks. These are some of the options. And this process of selling government assets to private players is called disinvestment, or slightly shorter, divestment.
It is remarkable that the stock market has been very good, very kind towards a disinvestment program. You can get good valuations if the government works this out well. It's important to raise those resources and use it efficiently in these times.
ITC was in this fantastic run all this time. They never sold it during that time. And they let it come down to this level and then say, my funda is, it doesn't matter. Just sell it even now. It's okay.
Yes, the mood in the market is great and the government can get great price for some of the assets that it tries to sell, but that's not enough. Some experts say that the government should look at getting strategic investors who will not only buy a stake in the company, but also contribute towards improving that business. Basically, guys who are serious about the business and not here to just make a quick buck.
I think the best model for India is public-private partnership, and it is best illustrated in Maruti Suzuki in Hindustan Zinc. Hindustan Zinc was making 100,000 tons in 2002-2003. It was loss-making entity, taking 250 crore plus support from the exchequer. It was privatized. I think 45% stake was sold to Vedanta for roughly about little under 800 crore, 769 crore to be precise. Today, Vedanta makes, Hindustan Zinc makes 1.6 million ton. In 17 years, production is up 16 times. It contributes 10,000 crore to the exchequer by way of taxation, royalties and dividend. The 30% residual stake of the government is valued at 30,000 crore.
Now, every year the government says that it's going to sell some shares or companies, but it never works really well. Nearly every year in recent times, the government has fallen short of its annual target for divestment, selling stuff that it doesn't need.
For the sake of our analysis, we have pegged our disinvestment receipts at 1.5 trillion. That's less than what was budgeted for this year. So I'm not looking at an outlandish number. We do have large ticket deals which have been in the pipeline. The question is, will they fructify in FY22 or get delayed even further?
The problem is that the moment the government says that it's going to sell shares in ABC company, the prices start falling very sharply. Like any product where the supply, the amount up for sale, is far more than the number of buyers in the market.
As a stock market person, I think the worst thing to tell people is that you're going to sell a share.
Yeah.
Literally, because that instantly gives the market, excuse me, we're going to bring the prices down because you're going to sell it. So you should sell it and say, oh, I sold it. And that's how you should do this for all of the government stake sales. Unless you're doing something strategic like BPCL. What's the point of telling people I am going to sell a share? Because when somebody knows that you have to sell it because you need the money for something else, they know that you're not looking at like the best price for it. A drip disinvestment is just the ability to get some of our brightest engineers to design algorithms that just goes and sells a little bit of shares every day in the market quite silently looking, and there are ways to do this. This is not new. People who have large blocks of shares to sell do use algorithms to slowly feed them out into the market.
Now, that may be an idea if the government just wants to sell some of its shareholding in the market, but for strategic divestment, getting those serious investors who will improve how the business is done, that's a different ballgame.
The second thing is that when you are doing strategic divestment, should we have a timeline? The answer is no. If the buyer knows that you are desperate to sell, he's not going to give you a full price. You have to sit on the table showing the opportunity without the urgency. Urgency should be with you, not visible to the buyer. If we follow this principle, I'm sure global corporates will be willing to pay a fair price for buying Indian PSU assets. These are great sets of assets, very valuable sets of assets, and they will create wonders in the hands of private entrepreneur like Hindustan Zinc or Maruti Suzuki has shown.